So what is Immortalis?
It's a new country I've started, a digital country. In 10 years or less, it will become a land-based sovereign country.
You're starting a new country that's leading to a new civilization never before seen on planet Earth, unleashing human potential. How'd you even come up with that?
You have to realize it wasn't a matter of coming up with it. It's a matter of a new way of thinking that I developed 45 years ago. And let me just say, it's not necessarily a new way of thinking because your super achievers, your great achievers, your Stephen Jobs, your Elon Musk, your Henry Fords, they all used this new way of thinking, neothink. I call it neothink or a new way of thinking because most people, I don't know the percentage, but it's way up there, like 98%, 99%, 99 point something percent of the people never experience neothink. It's very powerful. Neothink is a new way of thinking for most people. And that is basically changing from a following mode all your life into an integrating mode where you can start rising up with this higher level thinking and pulling things together to your advantage. Most people are stuck in these routine ruts. They go to work, they do the same set of responsibilities year after year, decade after decade. And at a certain point in their life, they say, what am I missing? Isn't there more to life than this? I know there's got to be something more. Well, that something more is achievable through neothink. And this is what I do with my 2 million members. I bring them in. I show them how to break into neothink at the very surface level that's easy for them, their self, their daily productivity. And then we go another level as they learn how to neothink to business, their business, or the business that they're in, how they can rise to the top. And then we go to the next level, which is what I call building a world empire, world capture, I call it. And you can, for example, my books sell in 140 countries in 12 languages all over the world. We've done business all over the world. How it's through this process of neothink. Now, it's only the natural progression for me. Once I get to that world level, next I need to confront civilization and what's wrong with it and why it's never reached its full potential, which we'll see today. That civilization has never even come close to its full potential because we've always been trapped in the status quo civilization on Earth, and there's another civilization that's never graced our planet. But now we will through Immortalis.
And you mapped out this new civilization in your really heavy, large book. Your bestseller, you sold hundreds of thousands of copies of these. It's called The Super Puzzle. You've mapped out this new country and the new civilization in this book. And so how did you even come up with that?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer lies in the name of the book, The Super Puzzle. And let me explain. So I've broken down our thinking patterns to 3 different forms of thinking. One is perceptual thinking, and that's more or less, that's how most people live their lives, in perceptual thinking. Percepts, think of percepts. So it's like a see-react. That's sort of how Mother Nature built us originally, going back to prehistoric times. You see danger, you react, or you see something good, you react. It's a see-react. You have no introspection, no self-decision making, just see-react, see-react.
Like animals, like monkeys, dogs.
Right. And unfortunately, most people live more or less in I want to say, I don't want to compare the monkeys and dogs, but I will say they live in a more perceptual realm of thinking. Now,
just in lower level thinking.
Let's call it lower level thinking. Now, some people will rise up into a little higher level thinking. And what they'll do, they'll pull together percepts into concepts. So I'm going to give you just a little example. Just the other day, we're going to the holiday season here, and I was in our shopping center, and we have a chain grocery store on one end, a chain drugstore on the other end, and in between it are shops, boutiques, restaurants. And there's this little bake shop there, which I barely ever even noticed before. It's a stucco front with bake shop across the top. So just because it's the holiday season and we're sort of putting together a big dinner for lots of guests, I thought, well, I'm here. I should walk in and just check it out. Now, I've been here for over 20 years. I've never walked into the bake shop. But the other day I did for the first time. Beautiful. Pastries, cakes, croissants, bread, fresh baked bread is beautiful inside. And it smells delicious inside. But from the outside, it's just cold bake shop. So for customer acquisition, that's the owner of the bake shop is using perceptual thinking. I just put a sign up front. People see it and they come in. That's perceptual thinking. Now, he hasn't done this, but let's say if I talked to the owner and suggested this, maybe he would. Let's jump a little higher level thinking here and go into conceptual thinking. So let's put together some concepts, or let's put together a concept. So the first thing I would do if I were the owner of the bake shop is put a monitor in the window with showing the crafting of these incredible designs on the cakes, the colorful, attractive designs. I would show them baking bread and these big, puffy, bread loaves popping up as they cook them. I would
making me hungry.
Yeah, I show them with their incredible cupcakes, designing them and coming out of the oven and the steam and condensation. So I would show all that. So when the passersby go by the bake shop, now their heads will turn and they'll look at this amazing monitor and it could pull them in. So now he's risen, if he did this, his thinking from perceptual thinking to see, react, to more conceptual, like see, watch, see how the process is. Oh, that's so interesting. Then they walk inside. Now that's more powerful. He probably would increase his customer base, 30, 40% by doing that. Then let's throw in there another concept, another conceptual thinking. When I walked in, it was just so, you said you felt hungry. Well, when I walked in, I felt really hungry because it just smelled so good. Everything was just smelled so delicious inside there. Right away, I wanted to eat a croissant. I didn't, but I wanted to because I'm on keto, but I really wanted to. So that delicious smell, well, heck, after 5 o'clock, you have dozens of people walking across in front of that, parking and walking by. So why not blow that aroma out into the sidewalk in front, and that aroma, so the passersby, the passersby, they smell that and they follow their nose right into the bake shop, right? There's another concept that could be applied to his customer acquisition. Let's come up with another concept here. Let's put a folding table. He had 2 employees inside with no added cost. Have one of those employees come out at 5 o'clock when the foot traffic is heaviest and bring out some fresh baked bread that smells so delicious, but it's warm, and bring out some cupcakes or slices of cupcakes for testing, for tasting, right? Samples. So now when you have all 3 of those working together, you're creating at the most simple level neo-thinking. You're pulling together these concepts into customer acquisition, and I can tell you right now he would increase his customer base by 95, 96% had he put together that neo-think puzzle. Not only that, the remnant factor is incredible. For example, people are home watching TV. They're going to see that picture in their head. That's called a neo-think puzzle picture. They're going to see it. They're going to remember. They're going to salivate. They're going to remember tasting that. That the picture has been laid out through neo-think at the most simple level. That bake shop then would be able to expand. They'd be able to, this is on the east side, they'd be able to open one on the west side, then on the north, the south, then the state over, and eventually you have McDonald's spread all over the country. So neo-think is limitless thinking, and then they could get involved in social issues, philanthropy, politics, you name it. When you rise with success, many doors open up for you. It's limitless thinking, just like myself. When I started, I was drowning. We've already talked about this. I was drowning at work. But then I started using some neo-thinking for myself, just my schedule. And I won't go through it all, but I was able to get control. I was done with my work by Tuesday. Then I opened up my ability to get visions, and I power thought them back and was able to pursue that and just build my company just from the first level of getting control over my own schedule. Then I expanded my business by changing the division of labor into the division of essence. That's all in my literature. We'll talk about that in a future podcast. That's going to be a real good one to talk about. And then from there to the world capture, spreading all over the world, business all over the world. And that's led me, the process of neo-thinking has led me to starting a new country, because I saw how all civilizations since the beginning of time on our planet Earth, have been suppressed, have been held down by a ruling class. And so progress has been stunted. We haven't come close to reaching mankind's potential. Not even close. So that has led me, that whole thinking process led me to spending 9 years writing the Super Puzzles, a trilogy. It's 3 books in one, 1,200 pages. I spent 9 years writing that book because I had to get it right. It's a lot because I'm moving into the unknown. Only Neothink can break you through into the unknown because it's pulling together puzzle pieces into puzzle pictures that have never been seen before.
So you're creating new knowledge?
You're creating new knowledge.
Okay.
And that's why it took me 9 years. Normally I could write a book like that maybe in 2 years, but it took me 9 years because I was in uncharted territory. So it's almost like a blueprint now for Immortalis. Once I idealized this civilization that's never existed on Earth with no ruling class, and at that moment, there was an epiphany that I went through where I realized, well, I have to actualize this. I have to go out and actually do it. And my whole history has been just that. I will idealize something in my writing, then I'll actually do it. Whether it's in productivity for the individual, whether it's scaling a business, whether it's scaling worldwide, and now it's taking on a new civilization. So I idealize through my writings, I've always done that, and then I actualize it. Immortalis is the actualization of the super puzzle. So if people want to have an idea of what we're getting into, read the super puzzle. Which, by the way, for very limited time, I'm giving away book 1 of the Super Puzzle. So that would be book 1 of the trilogy, absolutely for free, just to start getting this knowledge out there and introducing people to Immortalis.
And so where's all this taking us?
So remember, I told you Neothink is breaking through into new knowledge that's never existed before. I have an economic theory, and most of my theories become reality. So this is my latest economic theory based on my 9 years, my Neothink process of building this puzzle picture that's never been seen before in the super puzzle. Now we're going to make this come alive through Immortalis. Now here's the theory. And after I tell you the theory, it's going to sound way out there. I'm going to warn you right now. It's going to sound way out there. So be prepared. But then what we'll do here, Wallace, is we will walk through the puzzle pieces. So suddenly you can see this theory is not far-fetched at all. It's actually something that's going to come true in Immortalis.
Right, and we've seen throughout history all new ideas and new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things that are better are always thought of as crazy at first. So
there you go.
Because it doesn't exist within the current box of thinking. It's outside that box.
That's right.
And so I guess we would and I guess we could say to approach this with an open mind. Okay.
Good point. So where is this taking? Here's the economic theory. Then we'll walk through the puzzle pieces so you can see how real this will be.
All right.
Yes,
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Okay, so here we go. In the future, in Immortalis, and hopefully this future is not that far into the distance because I want to live to enjoy it myself. I'm in my mid-60s. I want to live to enjoy it. All commodities, everything, and I mean everything, including energy itself, is free. You pay for nothing.
Really?
Now, I'm not talking, this sounds like I'm talking about socialism or communism, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just that it's the diametric opposite of any form of totalitarianism, socialism, 1984, communism. It's the complete opposite. Here you have socialism. Here you have Immortalis, where everything, including energy, is free. Pretty wild statement, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's start putting together. Oh, and by the way, just one other thing, which is embedded in the name itself, Immortalis. Immortalis is Latin for immortal. People also will not die in Immortalis in the future. They will not die. Everything will be free. everyone will be wealthy. Everyone will be perfect health. There'll be no death and no crime. They'll have to look at history books to understand what crime is. Does that sound like utopia?
Absolutely.
But it's not. It's immortalis. So are we ready to go there?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so let's start putting together the puzzle pieces. This is neothink in practice. So the first puzzle piece I'm going to talk about is something that the general population can see and understand. And it'll be the first puzzle piece to begin to get a grasp of this direction I'm talking about. So remember what I said, that Immortalis is the first civilization that will have no ruling class. There's a lot to that. There's puzzle pieces to all of that. But just to give everyone just a quick little jump start into what I'm talking about, the possibilities here, I want everyone to think for a moment about the computer revolution and the information revolution of the late 20th century and now into the 21st century. So the computer and information revolution. So computer power today is affordable. Say you could buy a used iPhone for, I don't know, what could you get a used iPhone for these days? A couple $100?
Yeah, a few hundred.
Okay. That has more power than a Fortune 500 multi-billion dollar company's mainframes not that long ago. So at this point, we are computer power rich. We can buy for a couple hundred, few $100 more than what the Fortune billion-dollar companies could buy not that long ago. So we're computer power rich.
Mm-hmm.
We're also information rich. You know, information used to be a very expensive commodity. So we're information rich because now you can just go to ChatGPT for free and get all the information in the world.
Yeah, and Google.
And Google, but I'm liking ChatGPT now myself. But so look at that. Computer power, information power. Prices have dropped to fractions for computer power and for information. As a matter of fact, they're driving towards zero, like, say, ChatGPT, for example. In the meantime, the value you get is soaring toward infinity. So prices are driving towards zero and soaring toward infinity. Now, there's something very unique about computer power and information, and that is they advance so rapidly in unique ways that the government, our ruling class, had a hard time getting a grip on regulating all that. So, in a sense, the rapid expansion of computer power and information sort of escaped, not 100%, but a good part of it sort of escaped the ruling class and their regulatory and legislative powers over and their political agendas. They escaped all that. So with that escape, suddenly you're looking at something where prices are driven down, value is driven up. That's a puzzle piece. I want you to keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. And how did that come about again, Wallace? How did that come about, that phenomenon?
Lack of control, regulation, holding back progress.
Bingo. Now, let's go on to another puzzle piece now. That's one puzzle piece. Keep that in mind. Now, here's another puzzle piece. The ruling class of civilization has the power to regulate and hold back progress and legislate and regulate and litigate. Now, you were recently in Singapore for the Balaji Network State Conference. Can you tell me without, because we're sort of signed to secrecy on this, but just your experience with those scientists in the realm of longevity and what they were going through? Can you just, without giving away too much, explain that for me real quick?
Yeah, they basically said they need They were there looking for land, looking for somewhere to go outside the US where there wasn't going to be heavy regulation holding them back so their scientists could pursue their research and develop promising anti-aging cures.
And from what you told me, they have looked everywhere in the world, and there's nowhere they can go.
there's nowhere that they can go.
And to pursue their groundbreaking neothink breakthroughs, which we can't mention what they are here, but to pursue those, basically, they would be in criminal territory, right? With the legislations now in all countries, with the ruling class that has their legislation, because bureaucrats and politicians have to look important to continue their mirage over the people, their illusions that they're valuable and needed. So they are always creating these supervisory restrictions to look like they're needed and important. So the people still in their minds, they accept them. They don't throw them off their backs. So it's all part of the illusion. So wherever you go in any country in the world, those scientists, they're not some greedy businessmen. They're not like nefarious people trying to launder money or anything like that. These are just scientists trying to help humankind. That's what innocent scientists that would be criminals anywhere in the world if they tried to pursue their incredible breakthrough knowledge or neothink research and development. I just get really angry when I hear about things like this, but they're happening everywhere, all over. As we now have gone public and expanded our feelers out there for people, we're running into people left and right where this is the problem.
Yes.
So a puzzle piece is coming together here, and that is that the scourge of mankind is the ruling class. The ruling class holds everything back, and they shouldn't be there. We don't have the time to go into all the psychology behind how they got there, why they got there, what they're doing, but we will say this. We can see the effects of them out there, what they're doing to progress. Mankind has never, as I open this with, come close to fulfilling its potential. Not even close. And this is a puzzle piece. Why is that? The ruling class. That's the reason. So that's another puzzle piece. Now.
So we got prices going to zero while the value increases to infinity. And we have the ruling class slows and blocks progress. So that's two puzzle pieces we're at right now.
Okay, and just a little more background into what you just said, that second puzzle piece. The super advancement, for example, of the computer revolution, computer power, information revolution, the commodity of information, driving towards zero and infinity to the value. Some people say, well, that's just because of the invention of the silicon chip, high technology. So I'll say, well, no, there's examples all throughout history. You just have to find them. I write about James J. Hill, the railroad tycoon who, with no government help whatsoever, unlike the other transcontinental railroads, he built a transcontinental railroad along the northern border up near Canada and developed that whole area, the interior of our country, through his neothink progress and his expansion. Then he built these trade routes with Asia, and he was just an incredible neothinker. And he did all of that through neothink, and then he was destroyed by the ruling class, including his incredible expansion into Asia. Now, we would have been the dominant trade with Asia if that wasn't destroyed over 100 years ago.
And it was destroyed how?
There's antitrust law. They just created this Sherman.
Sherman antitrust laws.
Yeah, and they just applied all that to James J. Hill. Just this sort of lawfare being whipped up because there was a lot of corruption with the two transcontinental railroads that were built under the government's financing or help, subsidies. So there was none of that in James J. Hill. For example, on the other transcontinentals that the government was involved in, they had to tear up hundreds of miles of track because it was built so poorly, and none of that happened with James J. Hill with his northern railroad. So the government was embarrassed. They couldn't accept that. Well, it's because the government got involved that these railroads were done so poorly. These transcontinentals. I won't go into all the details at this time, but the point is, instead of accepting that as that's not the way you do things, you stay out of it, government. You don't use taxpayers' money. You just let the businessmen handle it themselves. So instead of doing that, they had to save face by saying, well, there's corruption. They built it wrong. They were taking advantage of us. So they created all of this, just whipped up all of these reasons to come in with legislation that really destroyed true business at work. It was a great destruction. Here we are 150 years later, and we're still suffering from our lack of dominance of trade, which we would have been the king of trade with all of the Asian countries if that had not been disrupted by the government. So that's one example 150 years ago. So, you have examples well before you had high technology. There are many examples throughout, the car, the assembly line, the electric light bulb, the power companies. There's just many examples. When business is free of government, they boom, costs drop. When they get involved with government, everything falls apart. So the ruling class is a scourge of mankind. Now, let's go on for another puzzle piece. What enables the ruling class to exist? And it's existed in every civilization on planet Earth since the beginning of civilization. So what allows the ruling class to even exist to begin with?
Well, they have the power to tell people what to do.
Bingo. And of course, they create all these illusions out there, many, many illusions, so that people think we need them. They think we need them to supervise, to do this, and to...
Stockholm Syndrome.
There you go. Right. See, we are living in a cult. I say this over and over again now. The ruling class, people don't realize this, but it's a cult. And why is it a cult? Because a cult controls people's lives, its victims' lives, by manipulating their minds. And through illusions, the ruling class makes us think we need them, starting when we were children in school, all the way up to becoming adults. We think we must have a ruling class. So all civilizations have had is by these clever people who are smart. They take the shortcut to power. It's unearned power. They're voted in, for example, or they rise up through the bureaucratic ranks, or they're elected, and they have this power over the people, and they make themselves appear, and they make the people believe we need them, and we don't. We don't. So you said that the reason we have them is because they have the power to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
All right. So that is the power of initiatory force. Initiatory force is the opposite of self-defense force. Self-defense force is valid and necessary in government because the purpose of government is to protect us, protect the people. And that's valid. But when you go beyond that, beyond those parameters of protecting the people, then government has moved into initiatory force, controlling the people. And initiatory force is the cause of the scourge of mankind, of the ruling class.
Okay. So the government now uses initiatory force to control rather than defend and protect.
Yes.
And initiatory force is the only reason that the government can do that. They initiate force on its people. They force its people to do what it wants. And so that's what you're saying gives them the power.
That gives them the power. So there we have another puzzle piece. Now we need to next see how Leonothink works. It's moving us in a direction. So now They're the scourge of mankind. They hold everything back. They stop what that beautiful phenomenon, that puzzle piece we talked about earlier, with prices dropping to zero and values rising in infinity. The ruling class stops that. So we got that puzzle piece, the ruling class, and we have initiatory force. Neothink pulls us and brings us through a natural progression. So the next thing we must confront now, remember, you're putting together puzzle pieces. What is the missing? Then you start, as your puzzle comes together, you start saying, what are the missing puzzle pieces? And you begin to know what they look like. And that's knowing the future, by the way. It's like when you build a puzzle and you see the picture coming together. And then you kind of get a big chunk of that puzzle together. Then you look at the missing puzzle pieces and you begin to know what they're going to look like, because you know what the buffalo is going to look like if you're doing a buffalo, right? Yeah. You know that curved back and that tail at the end. So you start knowing what that's knowing the future. That's why neothinkers are future tellers. They can see the future. They can tell the future. It's not through mysticism. It's not through being a psychic or anything like that. It's through building these pictures, these puzzle pictures, and then seeing what the missing puzzle pieces look like. So this brings us to this point. We're putting together this puzzle to get us back to this beautiful, phenomenon that we saw earlier. So we need to remove initiatory force. That's a huge puzzle piece. In fact, I'll call that the master puzzle piece. Once we snap that in, we've got it. So this is something my father, my brother, and I worked decades on.
What is it?
Called the prime law. And essentially the prime law removes initiatory force throughout civilization, throughout society, but not just from the people, but throughout government. Because why should any adult have the power to force another adult to do something or their business?
Well, they shouldn't. I mean,
and it's obvious at this point, right? Yeah. As we talk about it like that. So the prime law removes that power. And what happens when you remove that power? Remember, that's the master puzzle piece to the Neothink puzzle. What happens when you remove initiatory force from government?
Well, then the government doesn't have power to force its people to do what it wants to do. And which leads to now they can't have force-backed regulations. They don't have force-backed regulations, litigation. And so that removes the blockers from other industries and people to be able to pursue their research and development without being held back.
All right, so you're definitely moving in the right direction there, Wallace. So you remove initiatory force. Not only does everything happen as you were just saying, but you remove the ruling class. Because the ruling class can only exist through initiatory force.
And why is that?
Oh, because without initiatory force, what is this class we're talking about? A ruling class. They can't rule you. They can't rule over you. There's no more force. You've taken away, that's everything. The prime law is everything to give us a new civilization.
Right.
You remove the ruling class. All right, so we remove the ruling class, and the things you all said start to happen very rapidly. But I know people watching are going to say, well, wait, what happens to the government then?
Yeah. So what happens to the government?
And let's go back even further. So the government exists because of what? Taxes, right? Without taxes, they have no money.
Right. And they force people to sustain itself, because if you don't pay your taxes, they're going to throw you in jail.
Initiatory force.
That's initiatory force.
So without initiatory force, no forced tax payment. So what happens to the government?
It goes away.
Well, let me give context. What happens is this. We do need protection. We need a protection service. We need courts that answer to the prime law. We need police. Now, as you said, crime will evaporate and go away, and eventually it'll just be in theory. But initially, we will need these things. And of course, you're going to need eventually a way to protect your country from invaders. So we will, through the division of labor, there would be services that would form out there. And those services that provide the greatest value would receive our vote. Now, our vote would not be at an election booth. Our vote would be our currency, our dollars, or whatever currency we have. We would put our money toward the protection services that are most efficient and most that most serve us the greatest value.
So like a business.
It's a business. To make it all more comfortable for everybody, let's call it government. Because what would happen is very quickly the best service would quickly it accrue all the business.
I would love a competitor to the DMV.
There you go.
Never go
there
to
you
the DMV.
go. Right. Very
I would
quickly.
go to somewhere
right.
else
And
that's
so
more efficient.
if your dollars are doing the voting or
Yeah.
your currency is doing the voting, very quickly you're not going to have these DMV dynamics. You're going to have the best value rise to the top every time. And that goes for everything, including, protection and so on. That goes for everything and everything and anything. It's all about protection, and the very best values will rise to the top. Instead of every 4 years, 2 to 4 years going into an election booth and being just bombarded with all these illusions and going in and voting for someone who could be very dangerous to society and getting stuck with them for 4 years, maybe close to a decade because of the re-election and the incumbent and all that. And then so you're stuck, and the country is just going downhill, as we've experienced here, right? It's going downhill, and it's very dangerous. Every single day, the values that are the best are rising to the top.
So it provides like accountability and competition to the government.
That's right.
That's sign me up. I love that.
That's right.
I mean, I can't even imagine today if that were the case, the government would just like everything would be different.
But see how that's
It'd be
never
different.
see how that's never even crossed your mind?
Yeah.
8 billion people, it's never crossed their mind because we've never had that. You've never seen it. So if you
Right,
don't
it's new.
see a new color, you don't know what a new color is. So
Right.
no one's ever seen this before. It was neothink that got me there. But once you're there, it's the obvious series. It's just so obvious, right? It's very easy to see once you're there. So once you put together the puzzle, the neothink puzzle, you see it as a puzzle picture. You see how that would work. Now, of course, there's a lot of questions because everyone's only been in the one civilization we've ever had on this planet. But there is another civilization that I'm creating here with Immortalis.
Where no one can force you what to do.
Right.
And yeah,
The greatest values rise to the top. Your dollars do the voting. And let's go back now to that beautiful first puzzle piece we talked about, where values rise toward infinity and costs drop towards zero. All right, so now instead of just in computer power and information, the entire industrial landscape that applies to everything. So in every single commodity, everything you buy, this stand here with the microphone, the camera over there, the desktop, these curtains back here, our home, the price starts being driven down and the value starts rising up. And why? They're not burdened by the ruling class. The ruling class, through all the illusions that they've cast over all the decades and centuries that we all think we need, and we just don't need it. All of that goes away. And what's left is that phenomenon I talked about earlier. Values, price. And that's in all industries, everywhere. So when that happens, now I just want to lay out my economic theory now that we have the puzzle pieces in place. All right, so if you can project into the future now, by the way, the line of logic is unbroken now. We have an unbroken line of logic. That's what took me so long in writing the super puzzle. I had to make sure that there were no leaps of faith, that there was an unbroken line of logic. That's why I say it's faction. It's my own connotation of a word faction, which is fiction, but factual. It's what I call faction. Now, that definition is not in Webster's dictionary, but it's my own connotation. Faction. I had an unbroken line of logic in the super puzzle, and that's why I knew that I could actualize it, what I idealized there, because there's an unbroken line of logic. So as we move forward into the future and project our mind into the future with this unbroken line of logic, we see prices going down, going down, going down. We see value going up, 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 up. And we see that everyone in Immortalis, because of this dynamic, will be wealthy. There won't be any poverty whatsoever. Everyone will be wealthy because everyone can afford anything and everything they want and then more. So when you think about that, the nature of money begins to change. The nature of money, the nature of time, the nature of energy. They all begin to change in that new dimension. Just think of ourselves. We're running a profitable company all over the world. So if all of a sudden we're worth 1,000 times more than we are worth right now, are we busting our butts now for profits? When anything we want, we can afford. Anything. So why are we busting our butts at that point in time? It's not for profit. Money becomes less and less significant. And what becomes the champion within?
Fulfillment, happiness.
And how do we achieve happiness?
Through value creation.
That's right, through creating value. And the reason some of you have listened to my other videos or read my books, the reason that is because man is the only thing in our known universe that can, from scratch, create values. We're creators. That's our essence. And when someone's on their essence, they're happy. So creating values makes us happy. You see, the motivation, like I say, what would motivate us, Wallace, if we have all the money we could? What motivates Elon Musk? You know, when you have all the money, what motivates you at that point? It's not to make more money. And when money becomes almost insignificant in that future, and that projecting out into that future with this unbroken line of logic, well, when it becomes that insignificant, then what is motivating us? It's what you said. It's what's motivating us is living on our essence. And our essence is creating values. That is we're creators. That's humans' essence, is value creation. And when you create values, and this is what I call the beautiful ecosystem of humans, of mankind, is when you're bringing yourself happiness, you're bringing the world values. What a beautiful ecosystem. So there'll come a point where I don't need you to pay me. I don't need money anymore. I just want to create. And I want the pride and the joy and the happiness of creating and seeing what I'm doing out there for others. So the society in pure capitalism, you see, we've never had pure capitalism on earth because we've always had a ruling class with initiatory force. So all the people who have attacked capitalism, it's like everything flips here. Everything flips. Capitalism leads us to a civilization never experienced on earth, but I can tell you it's experienced throughout the universe. And the other civilization I call the civilization of the universe. Pure capitalism will bring us everything for free. Everything will be free. And we live to bring more free stuff to people by creating values and more important values for mankind.
Wow.
That's pure capitalism.
And so, like an example, let's just say you wanted to build a rocket ship. Could you build that rocket ship for free?
You could.
And what about requiring the labor
You
of other
could,
people?
because everything else is now free. You have to put yourself, it won't work if you're thinking, you have to shed your 21st century skin. have to shed your 21st century skin and see into the future of pure capitalism, where everyone is contributing to the success puzzle of civilization. That's where they get their internal motivation. It's not for money, because you already buy everything you want and need. You don't need money at that point. So everyone just says, hell with it, man. I want to be part of that team that builds that rocket ship that reaches 20 light years out there into, interplanetary exploration. That they want to be a part of that super puzzle. So they're not going to say, you need to pay me for my time. No, this is their contribution. The rewards shift from tangible money to spiritual, emotional contribution. It's a leap, but the line of logic is not broken. It's not broken anywhere along the line of logic. That is our future. That is the future of Immortalis. All these politicians always talking about, the greed of money, and always talking about, how you need to have free this and free that. Well, that's what you're going to get in the future of this other civilization, Immortalis. That is pure capitalism.
I guess I can relate it to a few other things. Like Andrew Carnegie, he created the public library.
Yes.
That was free.
Yes.
And Elon Musk is trying to go to Mars and colonize Mars. And he's just, he's not seeking investors. He's doing it with his own funds for the advancement of humankind.
Yeah. Look at you're looking at very much so. Like you're looking at like little pieces to this.
Little microcosms.
Exactly. Chat GPT, free, right? And the energy it takes to run AI. So, but we're getting all that energy for free. That's just a little preview to how it will be universally in Immortalis down the road. No one's ever been able to really understand capitalism before.
I'm starting to feel it.
Pure capitalism.
Nice.
Without the ruling class, it's another civilization that's never existed on Earth. Now, this civilization has existed throughout the cosmos because we've been conscious, the ability to introspect and make decisions and not just animal reacting to nature for about 3,000 years. So
man has been conscious for 3,000 years.
Yes, man has been conscious for 3,000 years. When you understand the full meaning of consciousness, introspection, make decisions, lead himself, and not just reactive to Mother Nature. But our universe is 13 billion years old. So imagine just one other civilization in the mass number of energy systems out there. So imagine one that's not 3,000 years. In 3,000 years, we went to controlling nature on a large scale with Hoover Dam, and then it took 33 years to get to the moon. You see how knowledge starts progressing, and now with AI, we're just shooting up geometrically. So imagine civilization that's been conscious for, let's say, 1 million years. How about 10 million? How about 1 billion years? So that's the civilization of the universe. They've surpassed their nuclear decision threshold, where every civilization will face this moment where they can wipe themselves out with nuclear power. We're right at the brink of that. So, which way will we go? But once you pass it and irrationality leaves Earth and we just have purely rational civilization, that's what the civilizations are like throughout the universe that have surpassed their nuclear decision threshold. And their civilization is the civilization I just described to you, that we're starting for the first time on planet Earth, the civilization of the universe, Immortalis.
Wow. And so that's the puzzle pieces coming together.
That's the puzzle pieces coming together. And I didn't lay them all out for you. They're all in the super puzzle. If you want to show that again, all the puzzle pieces are in there. But I just laid out, 3 or 4 of them for you, the big ones to try to get you to see. But they're all in there, every step of the way. You see the future in that book, which is going to be Immortalis.
All right. And so what should someone do if they want to find out more about this?
Oh, they can go to joinimmortalis.com. That's joinimmortalis.com. It's free. They can sign up. They can join the community and just be part of all of this. This is the future. This is a new civilization.
And so, what are the next steps?
Well, we've started. We're a digital country right now. We're something called a network state, something that Balaji, you went to the conference in Singapore. So we've started. We have a very, very soft opening. So we have about 600 members now. It's going to quickly grow to several thousand. But we've been behind the scenes. We've been meeting with influential people. We've been talking to places and people about the possibility of starting a charter city in certain countries. We're looking at Argentina and some other places around the world. So that's the process right now, but there's a lot more to come. Stay tuned.